Hey, all you hot listeners, this is episode 42 of Husband and Wife Talks. This week, we'll be discussing what we've been up to. Marta has been traveling for her work, and that was a whole fiasco. I've been listening to an audiobook, and then we also touch on an article on Business Insider about habits of wealthy people. We think you'll enjoy. So, stay tuned. Hey, Marta.
Hey, Adam.
How's it going all the way out there in Baltimore?
It's great in Baltimore.
Well, this is...
How are things in Denver?
Oh, yeah, that's good. I mean, today was nice. I didn't have much to do, though, since I was here by myself, because normally on Fridays it's a rest day workout-wise, so I didn't... So I feel a little anxious, I guess, because I didn't do anything super physical on the workout side. I did more coding and stuff of that nature, but I think I don't know what to do to get out my energy later, but well, I'll figure it out after we're done recording this podcast. But this is episode 42 of Husband and Wife Talks. We are here. This is July 17th. You'll be hearing this in your beautiful ears, all you hot listeners out there. And if you
July 16th.
I thought it was July 17th. It says July 17th on the Google Doc. Did somebody screw the pooch? Oh, now it says 16th, so it must be the 16th. The internet never lies. So 16th, you'll be hearing this beautiful podcast. Oh man, we are well-oiled machine as always.
I haven't messed anything up. Speak for yourself.
Hey, I didn't put the July 16th or 17th in there.
That
wasn't me.
Calendar open.
But that wasn't me. I didn't put July 16th or 17th.
I don't know. Someone.
The magical podcast note fairy just changed it on us.
The little gnomes typed it.
But if y'all heard at the beginning of this episode, Marta is in Baltimore visiting parents. She is on an extravaganza of a trip. Not really, but you went from Santa Fe to Baltimore. Well, you had a whole experience, so I figured I'd let you share it with the hot listeners of what exactly we've been up to, because you've been up to a good amount, I guess, in terms of traveling.
Yeah, let's just say I've covered all 4 time zones in the span of 24 hours. All 4 time zones in the continental U.S., I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was in Santa Fe for training for work, which in Santa Fe, New Mexico. If you've never been to Santa Fe, it's literally the tiniest airport I've seen in the United States. It has, I think, about 8 to 12 flights out of it per day. And when I flew there from Denver, it was nonstop, but it was this teeny tiny jet. The jet had 2 sides of the aisle. One side had just 1 seat. So I had a window and an aisle seat, which was kind of cool. And then on the other side, it had 2 seats. But it's funny because I packed one of my tinier carry-on suitcases because I thought, hey, it's probably going to be a smaller plane, and maybe if I pack a small enough bag, it'll fit without a problem.
You had the right mindset.
Totally wrong. Because before you even get on the plane, at the gate, they pretty much for all roller bags, unless you have some sort of duffel bag or backpack that you could fit in the overhead bin, every single roller bag, they checked the gate, and then you would pick up on the tarmac when you landed in Santa Fe. So I could have brought a bigger bag. I really struggled fitting everything into this because it was a week's worth of stuff, and it was both work clothes and then hanging out with friends clothes and casual, so it was a lot to pack. But yeah, so I spent a few days in Santa Fe for work, and then the travel extravaganza began on Wednesday. So I got to the airport. I got there really early because my training ended early and I didn't really have anywhere else to go. So I was like, I'll go to the airport early.
Like multiple hours earlier than you expected, right?
Yeah, it ended really early. So I was at the airport about 4 hours before my flight, which never happens. two hours before my flight.
I don't think that really happens for many people, getting there 4 hours early.
That's true. Let alone the tiniest airport. Like, I think the day on Wednesday, there were 8 flights total out of that airport. So it's very small. But so I got there, and there was actually an earlier flight. I was flying through Dallas. So there was an earlier flight to Dallas, and I thought, hey, if I can hop on that earlier flight, then I'll have more time in Dallas, which is a bigger airport, so I'll have more options for dinner and things like that. Unfortunately, there were no earlier flights from Dallas to Baltimore, so I figured I would just spend a longer layover. Um, Long story short, you have to pay to get on an earlier flight. It's called standby. And I didn't want to pay because I was like, I'd rather pay that for something more useful than just getting on an earlier flight for not really any reason. So I decided not to do that. I ended up reading there at the before the gate, or not before the gate, before even security. I read for a few hours, and then finally it was time for my flight to go through security, and it's one security line, one machine. So again, very tiny. So finally get through security, get my seat, go to the bathroom. There were two bathrooms total after security. So again, tiny.
I feel like you keep reiterating on this tiny aspect. Was it
Because
that
I'm trying
tiny?
to convey how small of an airport it is. Because
Yeah.
it kept shocking me. So anyway, get past security. It's time to board. The flight's at 4:52, so it's around 4:22, I guess. They board 30 minutes before. So it was an American flight, and they were calling by group number, right? So they called group 1, group 2, group 3, etc. And I was literally the third person in my group lined up, and the lady just held her hand out and just like stopped us from walking. And she was like, hold on, hold on, hold on. And then she gets on the phone and she says, just go take your seat, go take your seat. And I was like, lady, I'm already here. I'm not going to take my seat. This is ridiculous. I'm third in line. If I take my seat, I'm never going to get third in line again. Third out of probably the 5 people in my group total. I don't know. I was really dramatic thinking back, but I was like, I am not sitting down, young woman, young lady. But then I look out the window, and by the way, you walk directly onto the tarmac at this airport. There was no jet bridge. Forget that. And I look out the window, and the people in the groups ahead are turned around and walking back towards the building on the tarmac. And I was like, okay, okay. She said to sit down, and I think that might need to be what happens because all these people are turning around, and that can't be good. So I finally sat down, and then I overheard someone that walked by me say, yeah, I think it's delayed for an hour. And I was like, mind you, I have an hour layover in Dallas. So I looked at her, and I was thinking, she better be joking. But I am not in the mood for that kind of joke today, young lady. So I kind of just rolled my eyes. I was like, okay, 1 hour delay. Yeah, right. And then literally 5 minutes later, they were like, passengers on the 3-6 whatever flight to Dallas. We are delayed by 1 hour due to weather. I was like,
Great airport voice, Boo Bear.
so I was like, okay, well, I'm going to miss my flight to Baltimore because I had an hour layover. So long story short, I was looking at different options, like if there were any later flights from Dallas to Baltimore that I could hop on. There weren't any other options to nearby airports. So
Because you were kind of hampered based on the fact that you were at Santa Fe, this tiny airport in the middle of New Mexico.
mind you, there was one other flight out of Santa Fe that day, and it was to Phoenix. And I was like, okay, well, that's not in anybody's, or that's not in my way or on my way.
Opposite direction.
It's going west. And if you know any sort of geography, it's New Mexico. Then east of that is Dallas. And then way east of that is the East Coast. So anyway, since it was a work trip, I called my company, their travel center, and I explained the situation. And I was like, can you check for me if there are any other flights? And she, looking back, it's just funny explaining it. But she was like, yeah, actually, there's one flight to Phoenix tonight out of Santa Fe. I was like, yeah, I know. The only flight all day long, lady. Tell me about it.
It stays up on the board all day.
And then she's like, and then we have a flight from departing Phoenix at 10 p.m. I was thinking, that does not sound like a good start. Like, and arriving at BWI at 5:29 a.m. And I think my jaw dropped while I was on the phone. I was like, this girl has got to be kidding. I look like the type of person that's about to hop on a red eye voluntarily. No. So in my head, I was like, no thanks, lady. Ugh, thanks for nothing.
I love your inner monologues that you like to just transcribe for us or just narrate for us what's going on in your head.
Really, I'm sitting here. It's like 5:15 at this point, or not even. I think this was soon after they announced it was an hour delayed. 4:45. I'm thinking I'll be on that flight to Dallas in no time. This lady be telling me about red eyes. Absurd. Absurd. No, thank you. So I was texting my parents because they were going to pick me up from Baltimore on my original flight. And I was like, what do you think I should do? And I was texting Adam. And my parents were like, yeah, might as well just wait it out for the Dallas flight, because sometimes when flights have passengers from incoming flights that are delayed, they might delay that next flight if it's enough passengers.
Yeah.
Considering there's probably 60 people total on the Santa Fe to Dallas flight, there's a very low chance that there would be anybody else on that flight, also on my flight to Baltimore. So anyway, I thanked the lady from the company travel center that I called, but I was like, yeah, no thanks. And then I remember from when Adam and I traveled to the East Coast last month for his cousin's graduation that someone, when we were standing in line for Southwest because our flight had gotten delayed, and then eventually canceled, a guy behind us in line worked for Southwest, and he was like, hey, if you tweet at the company, they can help you. So I remembered that, and I finally made my Twitter for Marta Muses, my blog, which I still haven't tweeted anything. Sorry, I'm really embarrassed by that. So I was like, maybe I'll tweet. So I tweeted at American Airlines, and I tweeted my name, my original flight, and I told them, hey, my flight from Santa Fe to Dallas got delayed. I'm going to miss my connection. And I can check my phone to be accurate in terms of how soon they responded, because I'm actually curious for my own sake how long it took them to respond. So I will be providing that information very shortly. So I texted them, or not texted, DM'd them at 4:53, and they responded at 5:34.
So 1 hour later?
No,
like
40 minutes.
40 minutes.
Almost exactly, 41 minutes. And they responded with the same thing. They were like, there's a flight that connects in Phoenix and then lands in BWI tomorrow.
Sounds like everyone's guiding you to go to Phoenix.
So by that point, I was like, it's getting later, right? And by the time they responded, it had been more than an hour. And I was like, okay, I have a bad feeling about this. And there's a chance that, this flight to Dallas might not take off at all, because Santa Fe is such a small airport. I'm sure they have priority for larger planes coming in. And then I thought, if this can't be the only flight that's being affected in Dallas, so what if they cancel my Baltimore flight? So anyway, I decided last minute, like, yes, I tweeted at them. I was like, yes, please rebook me onto the flight through Phoenix. So then soon after that happened, like, I went on my app on American Airlines, and I had my itinerary was updated. So I knew that they in their system had changed they rebooked my flight, but I couldn't, since they just rebooked me, I wasn't checked in, so I couldn't get my boarding pass. So then I went to the literally one American Airlines employee, the woman that was checking people in before their flights, and then the one person, she was the same lady at the gate also. I'm not kidding. Tiny airport.
So I'm assuming, once those people see that they checked everybody in on that one flight for American Airlines, or however many flights they have for American Airlines, 1 or 2, they can just go then past the security gate and man that job, because they know no one else is coming.
Yeah, exactly. So I went to her and I was like, hey, lady, American Airlines rebooked me onto this flight, which at this point,
hey,
Dallas
lady.
Still had not taken off. Phoenix was taking off in less than, I think they were going to board in like 15 minutes. So I was like, I need my boarding pass. So she printed it out, and then I finally got it on the app. So long story short, got on that Phoenix flight. the whole time I was like, I am flying the direct opposite way where I need to go. I need to go east. I'm flying west. This is not this is not correct. But I was very grateful that it all worked out. So then I landed in Phoenix and I text Adam and my parents that I landed, and my parents text me that my flight from Dallas to Baltimore got canceled.
So it was written in the stars that you had to go to Phoenix.
And guess how much my flight from Santa Fe to Dallas was delayed? 2.5 hours. So just crazy day. Yeah, so I took off from Phoenix at 10:05 p.m. and I landed in Baltimore at 5:15 in the morning.
Red eyes are the
Which,
worst.
if you do the math, it's a less than 4-hour flight.
Mm-hmm.
Flight time. Flight time was like 3 hours 50 minutes, which is, even if you sleep the whole time, it's not enough sleep. And I didn't sleep the whole time.
You don't even get a REM cycle with that amount of time. You don't even hit that 4-hour mark to get one REM cycle. So I'm assuming you were a little beat the next day.
Yeah, that was rough. But I think that was a long story. But lesson learned is that you can't just wait around if something's happening with your flight. You have to be proactive. So either go talk to the airline people that work there, or tweet at them, or call them, or something. Because if you the other thing is that they, right after they delayed it the first time, they said delayed it in Santa Fe. They said, oh yeah, we're doing our best to rebook all of our passengers with connecting flights. And I was like, I'm sure that a ton of people have connections, because I mean, Santa Fe flies to 2 or 3 cities, so the chances of people having connections is high. And if this flight's delayed, there's also others. So American Airlines has a lot of flights people and flights to rebook. So just sitting around crossing your fingers that they'll rebook you is not really the best course of action. So I did learn to be proactive and sometimes just go with the flow. I mean,
especially with our chain, your actually chain of luck that you've been having with flights. Our flight to Jersey, and then, or no, Philly, and then the flight to from Santa Fe to Baltimore. Just been a string of bad luck with canceled flights.
Yeah, but
you live and you learn.
You always learn something, and in the end, as long as you make it there safely, that's all that matters. If you're going to be tired for a day, I mean, you can sleep and your tiredness goes away. So. And
then after the fact, we can record a podcast, and we get everybody, all the hot listeners, get the inner dialogue of Marta as she's traveling.
True. I could have my own podcast with just my inner dialogue and thoughts, and it would be really sassy, but maybe there would be someone out there that would enjoy it.
Yeah, I've sort of noticed that a lot of your inner monologues have a lot of, like, you have that little sound at the end.
Sound.
Yeah. And you have a little more toot in your voice and everything. I guess I'll go briefly because that was a not long story. I thought it was entertaining. It was a
pretty long story.
Yeah, I'll just go in briefly of what I've been up to. Not much this week, but since Marta's gone, just been working out a bunch. But I actually have been reading a book called Digital Minimalism. Not reading, it's an audiobook that I listen to on my commute to work, and sometimes when I take walks during the day. That's a good tip for anybody. Go take a walk while you work, cool off some steam. It's a good thing to do. But I remember I was texting you today about it, where now I'm really interested in getting into more physical, like leisure time activities, because that was one of the recommendations. Because the whole point of digital minimalism is that he goes to the point that we spend too much time on our phones and just casually, just constantly look at it, and really we don't gain any benefit from using that in leisure time, so to speak. So when you're sitting around and you're just looking at your phone for no reason, it's actually making people more quote-unquote depressed or sad or anxious, really. That's the main thing. Kids growing up nowadays are more anxious than ever, because they were looking at statistics of new kids going to college, and a lot of cases of anxiety cases has drastically increased. So he was making the case really of having high quality leisure time, whether it's reading a book or doing something more active with your hands, or he suggested also doing stuff like if you're into programming, doing more of that where it's not you're actively doing something, and then also learning how to be away from your phone and not inundating yourself constantly with this like constantly listening to audiobooks or podcasts or music to drown out your own thoughts, because he's suggested a lot of times when you get to listen to your own thoughts, it's a good one for your social cues, I guess, because they did a study where when you're not focusing on a problem, a lot of times your social part of your brain is active when you're just not thinking about anything. So that's one thing. And also it helps you sort of coalesce your thoughts on certain topics, because you actually have time to think and let your brain, process everything. So yeah, I've just been interested in now when we get a house in the future, because that's going to happen. I want to get my own workshop. And they also mentioned, I know we mentioned on the pod, but they mentioned he gave specific examples about Mr. Money Mustache and Frugal Woods.
They mentioned that on the audiobook?
Yeah, the book has those
nice.
examples that they're financially independent, that they had to start learning, like doing different leisure activities. And, they gave the example like, oh, this Mr. Money Mustache is in early 30s, so you assume that he's going to be, I don't know, what you would assume any young like male would be doing, is just sitting around playing video games, but he didn't get any enjoyment out of it. So he started learning and becoming more of a handyman. Like he learned metallurgy and how to wield or weld metal together, specifically just as side projects and everything, because he's financially independent, so he can just do other projects like that. And the Frugal Woods blog, they bought a large estate out in the middle.
They call it a homestead on their Instagram.
Oh, I think that's the term they used in the audiobook as well. But they have to, because it's such a large estate or homestead, that they have to like chop down or clear shrubberies and clear out paths. And if they want to walk a path, they have to go through and clear it and everything. And the main reason of doing physical leisure time activities is that you get more enjoyment and excitement when you have something after the fact that you can point to that you made with your bare hands, that you just feel happiness from it. So you can point to, I made this, instead of just sitting around and constantly just without even thinking, because I know I've done it in the past and I still do it even without thinking about it, where you just casually just grab your phone and you don't realize why did you grab your phone and things of that nature. So it's been an interesting book. I'm almost done. I have like an hour left audio wise, so I've been tearing through that audiobook because I've been finding it very interesting. I'm trying to take some of its advice to use. Deleted a lot of apps on my phone that I don't really need, and I just realized that I look at them when I'm bored and try to be more in the now, I guess.
Excellent suggestion, even though we're not doing recommendations yet.
Yeah, no, but that's the only thing I can really think of me being up to.
No, serious. I wasn't being sarcastic. That's actually a good suggestion, because
Are you sure it wasn't sarcastic? It came through a little sarcastic. At least that's what it sounded like for the tone.
For sarcasm, see first 15 minutes of podcast.
Oh, that's right. I didn't get the very tooty sound, so I think I'm good. It wasn't sarcasm. My apologies. I guess we'll get right into now the discussion of the week. And I guess since you're going to be reading off the first thing, do you want to describe what exactly we're going to be touching on, so to speak?
Sure. So today's topic, we will be talking about, our discussion will actually be based off of an article that I found on businessinsider.com, which honestly, I don't blame you. If you just rolled your eyes or were like, whew, that sounds boring. Trust me, I agree. Usually I would not read articles from a website like this and try to lead a 30-minute or so discussion on it, just to preface and, keep it 100% honest with our hot listeners. But anyway, it's an article called 9 Things Rich People Do and Don't Do Every Day from Business Insider, written in 2014, even though I don't really think any of this data is really dated. It's not really
Yeah.
related to the year itself. It's just habits that rich people do and don't do. And then, so there's 9 habits listed, and then it has some sort of phrase, and then it says the percentage of rich people and poor people who agree with that phrase. So we thought, I read this article at first and I thought it was really interesting. And then I sent it to Adam, and I think I read the items out loud to my parents too. I think we were all going somewhere in a car. So that's
I think we
how.
were going to the graduation, maybe, or it was.
Oh, yeah, you're right. We
Yeah.
were going to New Jersey for the graduation. But I really think it's interesting. I mean, you'll hear in our discussion, there's things that we agree with and things that we don't, but let's kick it off with the very first one, shall we?
Sure, that's you. Got a
What
big
if you were
end.
like, actually, no, I don't want to talk about this today?
Wrap it up. We're done at the 25-minute mark.
That would be really sad. So the very first one is rich people always keep their goals in sight. Rich people always keep their goals in sight. And the phrase that the rich and poor people had to agree with or disagree with was, I focus on my goals every day. So 62%, rich people who agreed was 62%, and poor people who agreed was just 6%.
Hmm.
So what do you think, Adam? Do you keep your goals in sight, or do you not have any goals?
I mean, we set up a wall of goals now on in our apartment specifically to keep us focused on what we want to accomplish in our lives, and I'm sure we have many more goals than the 3 pictures that are up here. But I think it's just beneficial in general. I don't think any of these are guaranteeing that you're gonna be wealthy in the future in terms of money. But I think they're always good habits to have, so to speak. But yeah, I think keeping your goals in check maybe not every day, but at least once a week, check in where you are, because you want to see the progress that you made from week to week or from day to day, and always want to get closer to that goal that you set for yourself. You know, you want to just continuously improve. And if you have a goal and you just constantly feed it or water it, or whatever metaphor you want to set for the goal anyway here, but if you just add a little bit each and every day, eventually I believe you'll get to your goal. If you just constantly just add a little bit, no matter how much you don't want to do it that day, I think in the long run you'll feel more proud of yourself, or it'll be more beneficial when you add up all those small contributions to your goal, and then you'll finally end up achieving, whether that's monetary value or any other goal you really set.
Excellent, excellent perspective.
Thanks. Do you have any comments on this?
I would agree. I think that it's easy to, and I'm guilty of this myself, it's easy to have a goal and either get overwhelmed or think, you don't really know where to start, or is 10 minutes a day really going to change anything? Having that sort of mentality just of being overwhelmed and unsure of what to do even. But I think breaking anything down into smaller tasks is the best way to get something actionable done, whether it's, I want to start reading more, or I want to pursue a side hustle of some sort, or I want to spend more time with my family. I mean, like you said, they don't have to be monetary at all.
Yeah.
But it's just, I think the point of this one is having that goal setting mentality where that keeps you more driven and motivated in life in general. So regardless of what the goals that you have in life, if you constantly keep them in sight and remind yourself of them, then that's what kind of drives you to get them done. And another interesting point on this one, and then we can move on, was that the article said that 67% of wealthy people put their goals in writing. So they don't just talk about them or have them in the back of their minds, but they actually write them down. And I think that writing really anything down, whether it's a goal or I mean, a goal is the best example, but
Mm-hmm.
writing it down, I feel like makes you more accountable and you almost feel accountable to yourself because
Mm-hmm.
you wrote this down and wherever you see it, wherever you wrote it, it triggers something in your brain to think
Yeah.
about it, even if you're not working on it daily or even weekly. It's just a constant reminder if you see it in writing.
And I also think from a lot of what I've been reading lately when it comes to habits or goal setting is you want to be um, more specific with your goals. Like you don't want to be as vague as, oh, I just want to start a blog, for instance. You want to try to be more specific of maybe I want to write however many blog posts a week for this blog. Just having, I guess it's more maybe not a long term goal, but maybe like a short term habit thing type of thing you need to stick with. But if you set up a long term goal, I think another beneficial thing to do in the short term is have what type of habit you want to keep that'll eventually get you to that long term goal. And doing it no matter what, each and every day, whether it's 100% or 10% of what you do, I think even doing it a little bit when you don't want to, that's when you really, I guess, prove yourself, so to speak. You prove you want to accomplish that goal because a lot of times, you don't want to show up to what you're doing. It's difficult because whatever's going on throughout the day. But, I mean, what's the generic saying? 80% of life is just showing up, and that's kind of what you have to do with your goals. I've been reading recently. So I guess we'll move on to actually kind of sort of coincide with what I was saying about being more specific or more short-term list. But so 81% of wealthy people maintain a daily to-do list, while 19% of poor people do, or poor people agree with that statement. And I think, I guess, keeping it to daily to-do list is kind of just small, little incremental things that you can check off, and it's like I believe it, like a snowballing effect where if you keep checking off what you're doing, you'll just get into the groove of wanting to continue to do stuff. But do you have any insight on this, Marta?
I agree. I think this is a good one. It's not something I do every day, especially days or weeks like this week where it's just I'm not in my daily routine with traveling and different plans. But I think on a good day, I try to have a daily to-do list. Actually, I have one at work that is constantly evolving. So I'll have my top priority items that are like I have to finish today type items, and then I have more general things like, oh, I have to update my resume or I have to finish this training that's due in 3 weeks, but it's not pressing.
Yeah.
But I think a personal to-do list too is helpful because then that can help me towards some of my more personal goals.
Mm-hmm. And I think I think you can break down your goal, the goals that you set into actual small to-do items as well. And if you set them into smaller little chunks, then it feels more manageable, so to speak. But I definitely could be better at doing the to-do list. I know I do it sometimes at work, but other times the workday just gets started right away, and I just can't have time to set my priorities straight, and I just sort of just go. I should be better at, taking time away and focusing on what I need to get accomplished today. And then also I probably should do this for just personal items as well. But, I mean, we're all human.
Yeah. Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah. Go.
Cool. This one is controversial. The next one is regarding watching television. So 67% of rich people agree that they watch TV 1 hour or less per day. And 23% of poor people agree with that. And in addition, only 6% of the wealthy watch reality TV shows.
We're screwed, Marmar.
So looks like I'm never going to be wealthy because I'm not giving up the Bachelor franchise unless they do something crazy.
Yeah. Do you want to comment on that?
So I see where this is coming from for sure because it's so easy to just have, after a long day at work or school or whatever, come down and sit on the couch and not do anything and just, watch TV to relax and unwind.
Hmm.
So I can see how that doesn't lead you to any goals or any sort of side hobbies or anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I just personally, I like things. I like to have time where I can just watch something that I know is dumb,
Mm-hmm.
like reality TV that I know I'm not learning anything from or gaining anything, but
Shut
I
off your
like
brain.
it. There's
Yeah.
a part of my brain that just enjoys it because it's drama and it's unlike anything in my life. I mean, I've never dated 30 men at the same time like The Bachelorette. I've never had these extravagant dates that they do on The Bachelor and Bachelorette, but I I would agree that that one makes sense. I think on average I probably watch about 1 hour of TV a day. I mean, on Mondays it's two, and then you know, Tuesday, Wednesday, I might not watch anything, and then Thursday, I always catch up
Monk.
with my Jane the Virgin, and then sometimes at night we'll watch Monk. So yeah, I'm not sure I can wholeheartedly agree that I watch 1 hour
Hmm.
less a day because sometimes it is more, like I just said, but I see how that makes sense.
Yeah. It does. It does make sense, and of course, I mean, you just admitted it. I definitely don't follow this. Um, I definitely watch more than 1 hour, I believe, a day, but it could just be off and on. Oh, I feel like I need to sneeze. Don't sneeze. Don't sneeze. No disease. I'm good.
Bless you.
Thank you. I think I'm good now. But I was also in that book that I was just mentioning, Digital Minimalism. It was talking about through all of the research of our, doing studies with people now on social media and stuff, that a lot of the times people always think that our brain wants to be, shut off or relaxed at certain points, but I forget where it came from. It was like reading from an old study done. But a lot of times our brains actually they just don't want to do the same thing that we've been doing throughout the day. They want to actually be doing something completely different, but also more of the active variety instead of passively watching something. And maybe that's where this is sort of coming from, where these people are, tired throughout the day, but they realize they have other hobbies that they can focus their brain to do that, and they get more enjoyment out of that. I think that's the main thing that they were trying to drive at with that idea of trying to do something different, mainly just because you get more pleasure from it than, just passively watching TV or just looking at your phone. I think that's what the main point was coming at, and I kind of wanted to touch on that because this is kind of coincide with like the passive watching of TV, where our brains are sort of, they don't really get quote unquote tired until we fall asleep, and that's where they recover. They just get bored with what we're doing, and that's where I guess you feel the drain. So I guess that's when you, for example, when you're studying constantly, you're studying the same topic over and over and over and over again. A lot of times they say that you actually learn better not by stop studying, but changing the subject to a different subject because you're doing something at least somewhat different, and your brain retains it more because your brain just gets tired of that one subject that you're constantly pounding away into your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that maybe that has something to do with it as well, is that they're trying to find activities that stimulate their brain in a different way and excites them. And maybe they don't
Makes
get
sense.
that from TV. That's just a thought. Moving on. Something that I like to do is that they read, but they don't do it for fun. 86% of rich people say they like to read or love reading, while 26% of poor people say they do. So it's more likely you are, if you read a lot, maybe you're more likely to be wealthy. I don't know.
And just to add on to that, from the article, it says that rich people, according to the study, favor nonfiction and, in particular, self improvement books.
Woo! I think we're good.
So, 88% of them read for self improvement for 30 minutes a day.
Wow. That's good. I mean, I do that. I think it's, you gain a lot from reading, because you just get different, I don't know, ideas. And it also just improves your vocabulary and just makes you think in different ways, and it's more of an active activity, so your brain is focused.
And if you're wondering if we like to read, please see episode 41, where we talk about libraries for 50 minutes.
And we ended up walking out of the library with 8 books, and then Marta ended up getting multiple more on ebook.
That reminds me, since the last podcast was recorded, I believe 2 more have come through on my Kindle that I had on hold.
I still have yet to have one of them that I put on hold come through.
So just going to take a quick look at how many loans I have out on my Kindle. That would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 books, all of which are due in 3 weeks or less.
Isn't 12 books like the max amount you can loan out?
Oh, I don't know. And then I have 3 books on hold.
Did you get through any of them while you were sitting in the Santa Fe airport?
I actually did not.
Really?
One, I get really easily distracted when I'm super trying to focus super hard. Like if I'm making I don't even know if this makes sense, but if I'm making a conscious effort to drain out any sound, I can't read because I keep focusing on tiny little sounds. But if I just start reading and I get into the book, I don't pay attention anymore. So when I was sitting there for hours, like there were people would walk by, and then a kid would cry, and I would just keep getting distracted. But right now I'm reading a book called The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna.
Sounds sad.
And what?
Sounds a little sad.
I don't know if it's...
Oh, yeah, you were telling me about it, though. So it's not really sad from what I remember you saying.
I mean, there's just a lot that
Takes
going
place.
on, I guess.
Gotcha.
Long story short is that so this is not what rich people do, because I'm reading this for fun, and they read self-improvement books. But pretty much it's set in Alaska in 1974, and it's about a family where the dad is a former POW, and he comes home from the Vietnam War, and he is different than who he was pre-war. He's more, as the description says, he's a volatile and changed man. So the family, or really the father, decides to impulsively move his wife and daughter, his family, to Alaska, and they're living totally off the grid. And so far, I think I'm about a third of the way through, but so far it's just about their journey, different struggles, and I don't know, I think the writing is really captivating, and I don't really know how it's going to end or kind of what's going on, but I like fiction that's like that, where it's not predictable.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
Glad you're enjoying it. But I guess we can move on with the list. And this one's yours.
So the next one is, I listen to audiobooks during the commute to work, which 63% of rich people agree with and 5% of poor people agree with. So I'm going to go ahead and jump in on this one. Actually, someone I know reached out to me today saying that they were looking for different podcasts to read, or podcasts to listen to on the commute to work, and she was listening to our podcast, and it made me really happy to have someone I know just reach out to me and say, hey, I'm listening to your podcast, and I liked this part. Just makes me smile, so...
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening. I'm not going to say her name because she's not Alan. We only use Alan's name 20 times in an episode. Just kidding. But yeah, I just appreciate when people reach out and just say something small. But anyway, I think that reminds me, when I used to have a long commute, back when we lived in the DC area, my commute was about an hour, 50 minutes to an hour each way, but it was on the train. So I could either stand or sit. And at first I would listen to podcasts and sometimes audiobooks. But then I realized once I got over the whole being motion sick thing, I would read on my Kindle, and I would get through books like that so fast, because 2 hours a day of just pure reading time, it adds up.
Yeah.
And I think, especially for a commute, it's a good way to pass time, because I remember one summer in college, I had an internship I was living with my parents, but the internship was about an hour away each way. And I started listening. At first, in the beginning of the summer, I would listen to music. That got old really fast
Yeah.
because, especially me, I'm the kind of person where I'm obsessed with a song, and then there's a tipping point where I hate it. I'm like, ugh, ugh, no, overplayed, not listen to it anymore. Get this off my phone. Um, so that happened, and I would just get tired of book or of music, and then I would listen to podcasts, but I would listen to the
Hmm.
same one for the whole way there, the whole way back, and then at work, if I was doing, I had some tasks that were kind of tedious and I could do while listening to a podcast. I didn't have to be fully like present in terms of my mental energy. So I'd listen to the podcast sometimes several hours throughout the day.
Hmm.
So long story, I'm just rambling now about commutes and podcasts. But I agree. I think everyone can find an audiobook that they enjoy.
I was gonna say that maybe it's less likely for quote unquote poor people, wealth monetary wise, um, because the main thing of um, for audiobooks is Audible, and like the main purchase is $15 a month. Mind you, for us that's probably not a lot. But now that I think about it, is that libraries have,
Free
audiobooks.
audiobooks.
Yeah, so if you're in that portion where you can't afford the Audible subscription to get a free credit every month, check out the library. They got plenty of them. Now that there's so many, different apps out there, you should be able to download audiobooks on your phone or whatever smart device you have and listen to them there. And I've realized listening to audiobooks is really nice for me when, because my commute is not that long, but I do take at least twice a day, try to take a few laps around my building or whatever, the complex, and I like to listen to the audiobook then, because I'm focused on something else and then it's not work and I'm just walking around, get a nice little walk in and learn some things.
Learning. It's always good.
Yeah. I guess we'll move on to the next one. Is that they 81% make a point to go above and beyond at the office. They do more than what the job requires, while only 17% of poor people agree with that. And it kind of makes sense, as if you put in more effort and you go above and beyond, you're more likely to get promoted. I mean, this seems like, I don't know about you, but it seems a little cut and dry, that this seems a little obvious. A lot of times scaling at companies is if you're on target, or if you're on target, great, you're not really going to be in line for a promotion. But if you go above and beyond, you're more likely to get noticed and promoted. That's just my thought.
Yeah, I agree with that. At the company where I work, I feel like the culture is that people, honestly, everybody works hard and everybody is really smart.
Mm-hmm.
So to just like what you just said, to just do your work, that's great. I mean, the way there used to be ratings, and it was 1 to 5. 5 was like you're gonna get fired. 3 was, um, doing a good job,
You're in the
which
middle of
is
the bell curve, whatever it's
yeah.
called.
1 was you're the cream of the crop. You're amazing. Blah blah blah.
That's what you
But
get all the time
no, well, I took away
from
the
me.
ratings, so who
I'm sa-
knows what I get.
I'm saying you get a 1 from me because you're amazing. That's sort of.
Oh,
I was trying to
thanks.
be cute.
Um,
But yeah.
oh, also,
Oh, go.
I was gonna say for that one in the article, it says that um, while 86% of rich people work an average of 50 hours or more a week, only 6% of the wealthy found themselves unhappy because of work.
Hmm.
But that reminds me, actually, during my travel escapades, which see the first 15 minutes of the podcast if you somehow missed it. Great story. But when I was in the airport in Phoenix, I overheard a lady talk to some guy who, I guess some guy was walking past her and she randomly stopped him and asked him about airplane mode on her phone.
Hmm.
Super random. She's like, maybe they knew each other. It didn't sound like it at first, but she was like, "Hey, do you know what airplane mode is? Like, what does it do?" And at first I thought she was trying to be funny, but then I realized she was serious. She was like, "Yeah, I just got this new phone and I don't really know what it does." And then the guy was pretty young. I would say probably younger, probably early 20s, if not late teens.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, oh yeah, it doesn't interfere with when you turn your phone onto airplane mode. The waves of the cell phone don't interfere with the plane or the frequency. And I was like, I still don't understand how something as complex as an airplane can be interfered with the waves of a cell phone. Like, wouldn't they have some sort of technology to prevent that? If you're in the airplane business, please explain it to me because I feel like it's so silly.
I mean, it may just be a sort of it interferes with their radar of understanding where they are relative to, like the FDA tracks where every plane is, and that could, I don't know, well, if there was enough signals, it could disrupt it and screw up where they understand where the planes are. I'm just spitballing here. I'm just.
Did you say FDA or FAA?
No, I said FDA. I meant FAA.
Ladies and gentlemen, the FDA sometimes inspects our food, but other times they follow our planes.
I was just speaking, and I meant to say FAA. I said FDA. I don't know why, but we are here now. But I wanted to add on to this slightly, is that I can understand when people don't want to go above and beyond because you already did a certain work, and then at a certain point of the day, you may just be tired and not want to do it. But I think you should. That's sort of that I always look at this thing that I'm working on, and I'm thinking, oh man, I could do this and this, which would make it better, but I really don't feel like doing it right now. And then I think to myself, all right, I'll try to make it better for the next 10 minutes, and then normally I just sort of continue rolling with my updates to whatever script or Excel file or whatever I was doing. Mm-hmm. At least that's what I try to do.
I also think, to add on, it's a bit of a personality thing as well, because some people are perfectly content with the stability of just doing what they do and, sitting in the same office for 20 years and just doing that, and they don't want change, or they don't want to move up because they're comfortable with the amount of responsibility they have and their current tasks and workload. But I think it's a certain type of person and also personality that drives the want to go above and beyond. I know personally, it's going to sound like I'm tooting my own horn, so take it as you will, but I'm someone that I do get bored easily, and I see myself kind of moving up. So I am not comfortable sitting in the same place and knowing that, I'm not getting promoted. I'm not taking on more challenging tasks and learning new things. So I find that, to me, when I talk to people, especially more senior people and leaders on my team, I always want to make it clear that they know that, hey, I want to learn, I want to do more. I'm not the type of person that is going to sacrifice work-life balance. So I don't think you always have to work more to show that you're working hard. Like they say, work smart, not hard.
Yeah.
That reminds me, I never actually finished my Phoenix Lady story. So after the whole airplane mode fiasco, she started talking to the guy about how she noticed she lives in Arizona herself, but she's visiting her grandmother, I think, in Maryland, and she was saying that on the East Coast there's no work-life balance and everyone's a workaholic, and everyone more in the West, like Arizona, California, Colorado, just the Western United States, they have a lot better work-life balance and things like that. So I thought that was interesting, having lived in both places and worked for the same company in both places. I don't know if it's the nature of the job or what, but I do see some truth to that. And I think it's interesting that you can still go above and beyond, or show that you're going above and beyond, without having that perceived mentality of like being a workaholic. You're someone that is still smart and works hard, but you also have lots of other hobbies. Like I know, especially in Colorado, it seems like everyone has some sort of outdoor activity that they do. Not everybody skis, but everybody either skis, bikes, or hikes. It seems like one of the three. So I'm just thinking about that.
Okay. I guess we can move on to the next one.
Yeah. I don't like this one. Okay, we have three more, so we'll be a little bit longer, but we're in the last third. So this one is I play the lottery regularly, and 6% of rich people agree, and 77% of poor people agree. So I don't play it regularly, but if it gets above, I'd say above 700 million, I usually would try to buy it because
Mm,
that's just super high.
yeah.
But it's just fun. It's just fun to daydream. Like, I
Yeah.
don't buy the ticket. Okay, that's not true. Sometimes I buy the ticket. Like,
And
I can feel it.
you
I can,
expect yourself to win.
like, legitimately, there's, I think, two times I can vividly remember in the last few years buying a lottery ticket, being like, Adam, do you know what kind of house you'd want to live in? And of course, I'm all like, yeah, I'd quit my job the next day and go buy myself a fancy car. And Adam's like, you're supposed to keep a low profile when you win the lottery. And I'm like, and I'm gonna buy myself a fancy house. Um, it's just funny because then we end up getting into like not arguments, but serious discussions where Adam's like, you can't just you can't just do that. You have to keep a low profile. And I'm like, can you? I'm just having fun here. We're not actually gonna win.
Just
And
let
then
me
when we check,
daydream.
and then when we check the numbers, I'm like,
You get
Adam,
visibly upset.
I know I say this every time, but I'm really feeling it this time. I just have a feeling 0 out of the 6 or whatever 7 numbers match, and I'm like, but do you get a prize when no numbers match? Because that's almost just as likely. That's
That's
not true at
not
all.
true at all. That's the whole point of the game is that it's more like very likely.
I know, but I mean, I think that one's pretty obvious. If you're just living life hoping that you're going to win a
Hmm.
lottery, that the chances are unfortunately against you.
I think they could have phrased this question more as they got. But I don't know how they would do this, but people beforehand, before they came into the wealthy category, if they were hoping that they would win the jackpot, because realistically, this is what I mentioned to you off the podcast before. If you're already considered wealthy, what's the point of playing the lottery when you already have that much money and you realize that playing the lottery is not a good return on the investment? Um, that what's the point? You know, you already have a
So
good amount of money.
when you said this, this is what I said to you, and I'm going to say it again because I truly have a question about this. So the word rich and wealthy is very subjective because
Yeah, because you can be rich
someone,
in in different categories, I guess, like friendships or all
well,
that
no,
stuff
I'm
like
talking
that.
about financially, but I mean,
Then
it's
how so?
relative. What is wealthy? Like a household income of 100,000 is wealthy in this category. A household income of 300,000. Like
Well, didn't they have
it's
a picture of Warren Buffett on the front?
well, yeah, but that's
I just assumed wealthy meant like a
crazy wealth.
millionaire.
Oh, turns out I should have just read the first
Liquid net worth of
second
three point
paragraph.
two million dollars.
So the rich people have an annual income of 160 more. And like Adam just said, a liquid net worth of 3.2 million. Poor people were defined as having an annual income of 35,000 or less and a liquid net worth of 5,000 or less.
Hmm. But yeah,
So,
goes back to my point. If you're already super wealthy,
but see, I have a problem with it being defined. It's defined by the net worth as well, but I have a problem with defining it by only income
hmm.
because a lot of times, especially in our society, a lot of people that have a lot of a high income, they have no wealth
Yeah,
because wealth isn't just a car and a house. Wealth is also assets that you have, investments, things that
yeah.
aren't depreciating when you drive off the lot.
Hmm.
So, in that sense, I like that they define rich people as having 3.2 net worth because that means they truly do have this buildup of
Yeah, and
assets.
they've saved it in some form or another.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess now that I know that the rich slash wealthy is defined by that particular number, I would agree that if you have 3 million in assets, over 3 million in assets, you either inherited that money somehow or you've earned it yourself, which
Straight chilling.
straight chilling. Um, but you know how to handle your money presumably, and you're not
Mm-hmm.
hoping or expecting to win. So yeah, that
Yeah.
one makes sense.
Yeah. I
Okay, move on.
agree. Moving on. 57% of wealthy people agree that they watch their waistline or count their calories every single day, and only 5% of the poor people in this study do that. And I guess it sort of makes sense. I mean, they have the luxury of counting calories and purchasing what they need for what they're eating because they have a lot of money. And then if they're that diligent with their money and keeping track of it, and it makes sense that they would keep track and want to be healthy and or keep track of all the calories and everything you're intaking because you're taking care of your financials. You would also want to take care of your body because if your body's not healthy, then what's the point of all that money?
True. You mentioned that they have the money to buy the food they need, but I think it's a misconception that you have to
Yeah, that's
spend a
true.
ton of money to be healthy because I've even noticed in our own life, I'm someone that likes to cook out of cookbooks and try new recipes a lot. And I noticed we would go to Whole Foods a lot because it's really close. And we would buy like all these really random ingredients and some stuff we would buy a lot of because it's sold in a certain
Mm-hmm.
quantity and only need like a quarter of a freaking teaspoon or whatever. So essentially, we wouldn't use a lot. We would buy this
Yeah,
random ingredient, and that adds up too because you're buying very specific
specific things. Yeah.
ingredients. You're not buying things when they're on sale. So I've noticed even in just different habits of our own, like you and I, meaning that when we go to Costco, for example, and buy something in bulk, or even at the grocery store, we buy
Mm-hmm.
things that are on sale
Yeah.
versus random things that we need that are triple the price of something else that's on sale. Um, so I think there's ways to be smarter about grocery shopping, and I've kind of learned this
Mm-hmm.
through our own experiences as well. But you don't have to. No one said you have to buy everything organic and
Yeah.
buy the fanciest, you know.
Am I going to replay this back to you later in life?
I like buying organic for certain items when I can, but I'm not saying to eat healthy you have to.
Yeah, that's true. I think it just all comes down to a lot of just being meticulous with what you're purchasing and what you're buying. And you're more likely people that are wealthy, they've watched their finances and they've paid attention to it. So why wouldn't they do that with their purchases and going to different stores that have certain sales and just doing their due diligence to purchase the cheapest, healthiest item. But I guess it also comes in the form of reasons more likely to or not pay attention and maybe buy like poor food is that the convenience of going to a fast food place where it's quote unquote cheap for a meal, but it's convenient, it's already put together versus having to go to the store and going around the store and purchasing and I guess getting coupons and doing that sort of thing. I think it's just sort of a mentality difference as well.
Yep,
I
that's
guess
true.
I guess we'll move on to the last one unless you have any more thoughts.
No, I think it's just important to try to eat healthy and figure out what your body needs and how much food you should be eating because I even saw on Instagram a picture. I follow some like different nutrition accounts and things like that, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes they show pictures side by side of meals that look very similar.
Yeah.
But then they show the total calorie count and it's like double or something ridiculous
Huh.
because
What's
one
this?
recipe,
What's the Instagram account
I
called?
don't remember. It was on my Explorer today.
Oh, okay.
I guess I don't technically follow it. It was on my Explorer,
That's
but
kind of a good, cool idea, though.
yeah, but I think the difference was one had white rice and one had like some spiralized vegetable or
Hmm.
something like that. And then the portion size was a little bit smaller. So I think even from what we've been doing lately, just trying to eat a certain way and watch what we're eating and how much of everything we're eating, I just noticed how much more I eat when I don't pay attention to what I'm
Mm-hmm.
eating. Like if I'm not actively thinking, hey, I'm trying to, eat this much chicken to get my protein and things like that, I'll just eat so much more than my body needs for someone my size and
Yeah.
my height and age and things like that. Um, but yeah, I'll go into the last one, which is this one just feels really silly, to be honest. Um, 62% of rich people agree that they floss every day. I'm not joking. 62% of people, rich people, agree that they floss every day. Only 16% of poor people. So,
Get the
yeah,
flossing.
when your dentist asks you if you've been flossing, don't lie. Get that floss out
Just respond,
and
have you looked
floss.
at my bank account? It'll tell you.
I think they'll be like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, you're probably right. I have no thoughts on this. I think it's kind of lumped in the same thing of them just being due diligent about their health and hygiene
Do
corresponds
you
to that.
floss every day?
No, I should
Mm-hmm.
do it
Mm-hmm.
more often.
You know, it's really weird. I used to never, not never floss, but I would, but not every day. Like some
Mm-hmm.
days I would forget. And then at some point I got into the habit of flossing every day. Just, I don't know, just became a habit. And then actually 2 days ago when I was in New Mexico, I ran out of floss and I like a little bit freaked out. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have any floss. So then last night I was brushing my teeth. I went to floss and I realized I ran out. So today I had to ask my parents for some. But it's funny how you can literally make anything a habit of
Mm-hmm.
yours with time.
Man, then becomes
Like
just like a natural thing that you don't even think about.
and then suddenly you're 25 years old and you're freaking out because you ran out of floss.
Yeah,
That's life, kids.
that's adulting right there. Sounds fun, right?
I mean, being an adult is fun.
It
That was
is.
just a really bad example of fun.
Yeah, that's true. I guess time to wrap this up. That's been all of our topics. Or topic.
Yeah,
All our yeah. So you want me to wrap it up? I'll wrap it up.
go for it.
This has been episode 42 of Husband and Wife Talks. Thank you from me and Marta, all the way out in Baltimore. She joined this in a Skype form, and she looks, well, it's late out there, and she's probably still recovering from all of her traveling, but she toughed it out to be here. Thank you, Boo Bear.
No problem.
As she flexes for the camera. But yeah, thank you all for listening. This has been episode 42. Remember, please share us with your friends and family. You can find this podcast basically anywhere. All our Facebook page information, Twitter handle information is in the description, along with all the Instagram handles to find Marta and I, and also the link for Marta's blog. So go check it out. Marta, do you have a new blog post coming out soon?
By the time this podcast goes up, there should be one.
Sweet.
Stay tuned.
Looking forward to reading it. But yeah, please share us with your friends and family. Email us hotpod@gmail.com. It's also in the description as well. But until next Tuesday, have a good one, folks. Bye.
Bye.